You're listening to Unhooked. On today's episode, avoiding the slippery slope, how to identify and work with danger zones. So, stay tuned.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Lipkowitz, and with over 12 years of meditation experience as a mindfulness trainer and coach for high performers, I've become obsessed with helping people break free from compulsive, unhealthy behaviors and addictions and step into a life of true freedom so that they can finally become their best selves and cultivate deeper and lasting fulfillment. I've created Unhooked, the Breaking Porn Addiction podcast, to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to master your mind and optimize your life. This is Unhooked.
So hello and welcome back to the show. I am back from my trip to London, back here in Amsterdam. And today I've got a short episode lined up for you, but it's an important one. One of the topics that comes up quite a bit in my coaching calls, particularly recently, is the concept of danger zones. And I think it's something that many people don't fully understand, but could really benefit from thinking about as a part of their recovery journey. So in this episode today, I'm going to cover what danger zones actually are, why they're not the same as triggers, some of the most common danger zones, especially for men overcoming porn addiction, and of course, how to handle these danger zones when you encounter them. Now, as always with my episodes on this show, this is not only useful for people overcoming porn addiction, but this is really just for anyone who's trying to change their habits and behaviors, people who are looking to overcome some bad habits and install some new healthy habits in their life. So what is a danger zone? A danger zone is more than just a simple trigger. It's a time, a location, or a scenario where you are more susceptible to relapse. So it's not only about the temptation or the trigger, it's about the conditions that make you more likely to give in to that temptation. You can think of it as a situation where the odds are stacked against you, where the odds are not in your favor. Here's a way I like to visualize it, particularly with my clients. Imagine you're driving a motorbike along a beautiful coastline. There's winding curves, some like beautiful coastline scenery, and you're enjoying the ride, but then you notice an area up ahead with some loose rocks or some gravel scattered across the road. Or maybe there's ice on the road. Maybe it's foggy and there's low visibility. In these kinds of spots, there's an increased risk of slipping off the road. Another way of looking at it is maybe the guardrails are missing, so that if you do slip, there's nothing to catch you before you slide all the way down the mountain. In other words, you're in a high-risk environment. The chances of you slipping are increased. That's what it's like to enter a danger zone in recovery. So what are some examples of danger zones, particularly for porn addiction? These will be specific to each individual. They will be personal to you. But some of the most common ones that I hear about and that I have experienced myself are boredom. Boredom is a huge one. You're sitting at home, you're alone, you're bored. That's a big danger zone for a lot of guys. Another one could be periods of heavy stress at work. So if you're going through a period of work where it's very stressful, there's a lot of difficult conversations coming up, that can be a danger zone. Hotel rooms can also be big danger zones. Especially if you're traveling alone, there's something about that environment that is very, sticky. It's hard for people to get through it. It's much more susceptible to relapse. Some other danger zones, things like parties or maybe events where alcohol or recreational drugs are present. Places where you've acted out in the past can also be danger zones. The intensity of the triggers can be strong. Isolation can also be a danger zone. If you know that you're going to be spending a lot of time alone, or moments when you think, hey, no one will know what I'm up to, I can get away with this. Another interesting danger zone is working from home. This is one that I'm seeing more and more in my practice. The boundaries are blurred between work and personal life, and there's many distractions, and again, also that time alone. Danger zones can even be simple things like Friday nights or Saturday nights. The week is over and maybe there's some temptation to unwind in a familiar way. So again, each of these danger zones are relative. They depend on your own personal history and where you are in your recovery. Important thing to understand here is that the further along you are in your recovery, the fewer danger zones might exist for you because you've developed the skills to manage these situations. So for example, early on in my own recovery, I had to be more mindful or at least aware about going to places like the gym or going to yoga classes where, again, the intensity of triggers was quite high. So over time, these environments stopped being danger zones for me because I was able to have some more space in my sobriety, more tools in my tool belt, and also because the momentum of those habits and those triggers died down. So those are no longer danger zones for me, whereas they used to be. So it really is relative depending on where you are in your recovery. So how do we deal with danger zones? There are 3 tips that I have that can make a huge difference. The first tip is to identify your personal danger zones. So self-awareness here is key. Paying attention to how certain environments make you feel. Mindfulness here is going to be a really powerful tool for noticing which situations or places feel like danger zones for you. The more that you can notice these patterns, the easier it's going to be to anticipate your danger zones. Tip number 2 is to avoid danger zones when possible. So to think of your recovery like this fragile egg that you're carrying. Sometimes in elementary school or middle school, you get this assignment where you have to take home an egg and you have to care for it for a whole week. And then you have to take it back to the class and show that you've actually cared for it. So you need to protect this egg at all costs. And sometimes that means avoiding high risk situations altogether. So you can ask yourself, is it worth putting myself in this situation? If you have a problem with alcohol, if alcohol is something that tends to be a slippery slope and causes you to relapse, you can ask, is it worth going to this party where I know there's going to be a lot of people drinking? Sometimes, particularly early in your recovery, the best option is just to stay away from these danger zones and these situations where you're at higher risk. Same with, things like working at home. If working at home is a danger zone for you, then it might be worthwhile avoiding that and, paying money to rent out a co-working space. These are some examples of when you can avoid it. If you can't avoid a danger zone, let's say it's a part of your work or, there's, for whatever reason, it's not something you can avoid, see if you can mitigate the risk ahead of time and create accountability for yourself. So if you know that you're entering a danger zone, you can take some proactive steps to support your recovery. One of the best ways to do this is to commit to a friend or a coach. Let them know that you're heading into a potentially difficult situation and that you're committed to staying on track. In the past, I've used this technique myself. I'd call up a friend and say, hey, I'm going into a danger zone. I'm going into a place where I've acted out in the past and, I'm a little bit worried, and I'm just letting you know because I want to recommit myself to not acting out. So can you check in on me next week and just make sure that I've stayed committed to that? So that extra layer of accountability can really make a huge difference there. And this is something that has added benefits as well. Again, when you open up to your friends, to people that are there to support you, it also helps you let go of shame and, melt some of that toxic shame that you might have around the habit. Now, with all of this, remember that habit change isn't just about addressing the external factors. It's also about doing the inner work so that eventually these danger zones no longer affect you in the same way. So instead of constantly trying to avoid or sweep the gravel off the road, in this metaphor of you're driving along the coastline, instead of trying to avoid or sweep the gravel off the road, imagine that you can upgrade your vehicle to one with traction control and 4-wheel drive. Over time, you're equipping yourself to handle these situations with more resilience and with more skillfulness. You become a person who can go into those danger zones without fear because you're well equipped to deal with whatever comes your way. So being smart about your recovery means both doing the inner work and the outer work. Avoiding the risky situations and that setting boundaries with yourself and others, and doing that inner work, which includes things like cultivating inner strength and resilience, and things like connecting to what's most important to you, understanding what your values are, what are your aspirations. If you do this dual approach, it makes you much stronger at dealing with danger zones. So that's all I have for you today. If you found the episode today valuable, if you find it helpful, please consider doing us a huge favor and subscribing to the show or leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. The reviews can be totally anonymous, so you can do it without letting anyone know that you listen to the show if that's an issue for you. But it really does help the algorithm spread the show to more people who might benefit from it. All right, take care, and I'll see you on the next episode.